get started. And everybody's been here before, so I might skip the first. We may do that later if some new folks show up to welcome and connect with anybody new. Let's see. Jan is going to do the land acknowledgement. I don't see her yet. So maybe, Simon, you could do the community ground rules. We'll stall for Jan a couple of more minutes.
Absolutely. Before I start, is anybody hearing any like feedback or anything from my end?
No.
All right, great. Yes, you are? Okay.
I am, yeah.
No problem. Hold on.
It's not too bad though, Simon.
Give me a sec. Let me just. There we go. Fixed. Okay. So, our chapter ground rules for every meeting: make space or take space. Take space. I can talk. Limit your responses to 2 minutes so everybody has time to share. Speak from the I perspective instead of generalizing. Practice active listening and seek to understand. Assume that everybody has good intentions. Respect one another's space, time, and interest. Be willing to be uncomfortable. Be open to productive discomfort. Remember that intent does not negate impacts. And disagree without discord. Personal attacks and labeling have no place in our chapter. And accept that there is no quick fix for the issues that we discuss.
Good. Thank you, Simon. We'll stall a couple more minutes. I see Jan just joined us. Beth, do you have something creative for us?
I do. And I thought we'd do a little something different today because of everything that's happening in the world and because of how stressful it is. And we always start with giving gratitude to the earth, rightly so, for being an environmental organization. But this is about embodying that gratitude. So if you would just focus on your gratitude for the earth, maybe it's something specific like flowers or seasons or cooler weather or her regenerative power, whatever your connection with her is. And we breathe that in as though you can breathe it in. And some people say, yes, of course, it's an atmosphere. Breathe it into your being. And when you do, start breathing it in way up here. And if you feel like it, go ahead and put your hands here because this is about embodying, right? Being grounded. That's what the earth teaches us, embodying and being grounded. Now, this part of the body doesn't actually move when we breathe, but when we get stressed, all the air, all of our breathing comes up here, right? You hear a loud noise. You see the bear in the forest. Everything goes up here. So just put your hands here and we're going to breathe that gratitude into this place that holds that adrenaline stress response. And now we're going to bring it down to the middle part of the body, right underneath the rib cage where the diaphragm is. And now we're going to breathe, focus on that gratitude. Focus on where you feel that gratitude in your body. And now breathe that essence of gratitude into this middle part of your body, this diaphragm. You can put your hands there. And there's one more visual, and that's way down deep belly breath. And I always envision that breath going down. So you can put your hands on that pelvic area, that where we stand tall and say, I am here and I am present. And placing our hands there, now we breathe that essence of gratitude down into that deep belly place. And one more, and that's a focus on the feet, our connection to the earth, and take a nice, beautiful breath into our feet and the place where we walk upon her. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth.
Beth.
Jan, welcome. Are you ready for the land acknowledgement?
Hi, y'all. Just give me a minute here. Sorry, had a little computer glitch.
No problem.
Need a minute to bring it up. Okay, you're all ready?
Yes.
We want to start this meeting with our Indigenous land acknowledgement, which is now available on our Checkford website. Specifically in the DFW areas, we are standing and living on the lands stolen from the Kickapoo, Wichita, Tawakoni, Jumanos, and Comanche people who have been harmed, yet continue to thrive in the process of colonization and white supremacy. I encourage all of us to go to nativeland.ca and educate ourselves on these Native communities.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, I think we're ready for our presentation. We are privileged to have two of our members presenting today, Reverend Mel Caraway and Deacon Joey Clavijo. And let me tell you a little about them. I will start with Reverend Caraway is a retired clergy member of the North Texas Conference of the United Methodist Church. Since 2002, he has represented the annual conference on the board of Texas Impact, which he served as president for 6 years. At this time, he is the Interfaith Climate Coordinator for Texas Impact, Texas Interfaith Power and Light. He attended COP25, the United Nations Framework for Climate Change in Madrid, Spain, COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland, and COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, as a faith community observer. He just concluded a term as co-chair of the Faith Working Group of the Southeast Climate and Energy Network. He is on the steering committee of the United Methodist Climate Justice Movement and is on their state and local advocacy planning team, as well as the South Central Jurisdiction organizing team. He regularly testifies from a faith perspective before state and national legislative committees and regulatory agencies on environmental and consumer protection issues, with a special emphasis on methane pollution. So welcome, Reverend Caraway, and let me tell you a little about Reverend Joey. Deacon Joey is a retired deacon in the Episcopal Church, licensed to serve in the Episcopal Diocese of Dallas. Canonically resident of the Episcopal Diocese of Louisiana, his ministry revolves around the connected works of evangelism, creation care, and racial conciliation. Deacon Joey was formed for ministry through the Iona Collaborative at the Seminary of the Southwest, ordained deacon in 2018, and served as parochial deacon at St. George Episcopal Church in New Orleans, where he served as hospital chaplain and served the local homeless community. In 2020, 2021, he completed a certificate program through SWANEE, the University of the South on contemplation and care for creation, where he remains connected with the Center for Deep Green Faith and facilitates small groups in nature contemplation and care for creation through courses on eco-spirituality and eco-theology. Deacon Joey is husband to Donna, father of Michael and Michelle, grandfather to Patrick and Christian. He spends time in nature contemplation, centering prayer, and enjoys time with friends on various Zoom sessions around the country. His hobbies are music, reading, and taking daily walks with puppy dogs. I think we're really privileged to have two people who can talk to us about creation justice. I think it's a very important factor for us to move forward in the climate movement. And Reverend Joey and Reverend Caraway will explain to us what creation justice is and their thoughts on it, so we can incorporate it into our understanding and our toolkit. So I will turn the floor over to Deacon Joey and Reverend Caraway. I think, Simon, you have the controls now. So I think you folks are just speaking. I don't know if you have a slideshow. No slideshow. So who's going to go first?
Well, I think Reverend Mel should go first. Age before beauty, Mel.
Okay, well, I will go ahead and do that. Thank you for the invitation, Richard, and it's good to be with partners in this journey together. What I want to focus on today is how our faith, however we may describe that, and I'm going to be speaking primarily from a Christian perspective, but I think when we look at creation care, climate justice, we can approach it from the standpoint of any religious faith or no religious faith at all, because all the principles are the same. Having said that, I want to first say that the climate crisis that we are living in is very real. And as we look at the climate crisis, I think largely we have a tendency to oversimplify it. We tend to look solely at the scientific aspects of climate, and we forget about how climate interconnects with so many other aspects of our daily lives. So in order for us to achieve a just resolution to the climate crisis, we must absolutely look at its relationship to racial justice, economic justice, healthcare justice, migration justice, and many other justice-related issues. And make no mistake, climate crisis is a justice issue. When we look at our Judeo-Christian tradition, justice is a major focus of that tradition. I believe that in our discussion of climate and creation care, there are four major relationships that it's important for us to understand as we begin our discussion. First, there's the relationship between God and creation. Each major religious tradition has its own creation story. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, we have the story in Genesis 1 and 2, and that's the relationship between God and creation. God created the earth and the plants and the animals, and then God said that they were all good. The 24th Psalm begins with these words: "The earth is the Lord's and all that is in it, the world and those live in it, for he has founded it on the seas and established it on the rivers." So we have that first relationship between God and creation. The second relationship I think we need to look at is between God and humankind. In creating the earth and all that was in it, God gave dominion, not domination, dominion, which is the same thing as stewardship to humankind over all that God had created. This is amplified in Micah 6, verse 8, which states, "And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God." In so doing, God established the third relationship, which is between humankind and all that God created. And the fourth relationship, and indeed the one that most people fail to recognize in this creation narrative, is the relationship between ourselves and the rest of humankind. This is the relationship that Jesus himself spoke of when he instructed us to love the Lord our God and to love our neighbor as ourselves. This is the relationship upon which our faith brings us to the understanding of how justice connects all of this together. So I think it's important for us as we look at the faith interconnections with justice to ask, why do we have this climate crisis? Well, we have this climate crisis because the average temperature of our planet is increasing too rapidly and has become unhealthy. Think about it for a moment. And I have the esteemed climate scientist and evangelical Christian, Dr. Catherine Hayhoe, to thank for this analogy. What is your average body temperature? It's 98.6, correct? If your temperature were to increase 2 degrees to 100.6 degrees, you would be sick, wouldn't you? Well, guess what? The average temperature of our planet has increased more than 2 degrees Fahrenheit. And if our bodies did that, we would be taking measures to decrease our temperature to a healthy level. Why are we not taking healthcare measures with our planet to bring its temperature back to a healthy level? Not to do so is an injustice. So let's look at, excuse me, let's look very briefly at what is causing this rapid increase in temperature of our planet. Primarily, it is caused by our use, excuse me, by our use of fossil fuels. They're used to fuel transportation, manufacture plastics, produce electricity, and many other uses. And by burning fossil fuels, primarily coal and oil and gas, we release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And carbon dioxide, as we know, is a heat-trapping gas that causes the air inside Earth's bubble to get warmer. The gas, and therefore the heat, can't escape. Much of our transportation infrastructure, our highway system, is built closer to poorer and more vulnerable communities of color, especially in our large cities where a large amount of concrete also serves to trap the heat. But rising levels of heat are not the only downside of this climate crisis. These increases in temperature are also causing weather patterns to change and become more severe. Heat waves become more intense, cold waves are more brutal, rain and snowfall amounts increase, drought conditions become more severe, and weather becomes more and more unpredictable. And just as all these changing weather patterns cause increasing amounts of damage, other factors come into play that disproportionately impact populations, especially the poor, the indigenous peoples, people of color, children, and the elderly. Because temperatures are rising, the ice caps at both poles are melting at alarming rates. And with this glacial ice melt comes rising sea levels. Flooding is occurring on inland rivers as well as in coastal regions. Just this past winter alone, we've seen massive amounts of snowfall, which are causing flooding as they melt. We've seen increasingly powerful tornadoes wreak total destruction on towns across the country. We've seen towns and streets flooded on sunny days, as well as on rainy days due to sea level rise. We've seen whole communities forced to relocate as their ancestral homes are flooded. And we hear naysayers tell us that all this, well, it's just natural weather phenomena. Bull. It's not. All of this could have been prevented, and more of it will happen unless we make a concerted effort to mitigate the effects of climate change. So who suffers as a result of climate crisis, and why are these changing conditions a justice issue? It's a justice issue because the poor and Black and brown communities suffer disproportionately. Race and the economy come into play because these communities have historically been segregated in low-lying, easily flooded areas, near industrial plants and their refineries and their pollution, in communities divided by major highways and through redlining that prevented many people from moving to more desirable locations. These are all areas that more often than not lack good health care, and they're often also food deserts. They often lack this basic health care because their state governments, like our own here in Texas, refuse to expand Medicaid health coverage. They're in food deserts because corporate grocery chains can make a better profit in affluent suburbs. These areas are often surrounded by industrial plants and refineries that pollute the air and the ground and the water with toxic chemicals that cause increased rates of severe diseases, especially cancers and asthma. Many of these problems could be solved by enforcing stringent regulations, but far too often this does not take place because our politicians claim that it would be a job killer. It's a justice issue. It's a justice issue because people's lives and their health are more important than corporate profits. We're called to care for one another. And besides, if we were to address these causal problems, we would be creating many more new jobs in a newly expanded economy. So you can see that there are many intersections between race and the economy and healthcare with climate, and all of them revolve less around science and more around justice, the justice that we have been called by our faith to embrace. We haven't even begun to touch on migration yet, even though much of the migration that is taking place globally is caused by the climate crisis. Drought, increasingly powerful storms are all forcing peoples in the developing world from the lands that they have historically lived on and made a living from. Much of these changing climate patterns are caused not by the peoples who live in these lands, many of whom are in the southern hemisphere and in the Arctic region. Instead, they're caused by increasing use of fossil fuels in the developed world. And when their lands become uninhabitable, they seek to migrate to a place where they can provide for their family and live a better life. Unfortunately, the United States does not have a category for climate migrants who come here seeking asylum. And yet, in the work that I've done with Dallas Responds, helping relocate asylum seekers, many of them continue to come to our borders because they have not only lost their homes, but also their land when it washed down the mountainside in a tropical weather event, whether it be a hurricane or cyclone, or from drought, as many of our African asylum seekers face. To not respond to these people in their time of need is an injustice also, and it calls for remediation. So we have all these interconnections between justice and the climate crisis. We have all these challenges to our faithful response to the climate crisis. And healing the climate in and of itself won't solve all these injustices, but it certainly would be a first step in bringing justice to all of God's people. Thank you. Richard, I'm open to questions. Do we want to save those to the end?
Yes, let's save those to the end. Let's go ahead with Deacon Joey, and very thought-provoking now. Let's give people a little more time to form their questions. And Deacon Joey, if you're ready.
Thank you. I am. I sent you a copy of my talking points last night. So I have that, and you have it, I think, also, Richard. If anyone wants a copy of this with links to where the talk is coming from, I'm sure we can distribute those to anybody who may want to take a look or look any further. But anyway, to begin, let me say that it is good to be one with all of you this morning. It's a privilege to be one with all of you this morning. And my talk is really aimed at the knowledge that we are already one with God, one with our neighbor, and one with all of creation. It's just hard to see it sometimes. So the climate crisis is intersecting our lives with ever increasing urgency. It is really time for all people of goodwill to double down on our response to the climate crisis. The world in which we live is collapsing and may be nearing the breaking point. That quote was taken from Pope Francis's apostolic exhortation, Laudate Deum, which came out just a few weeks ago. And I have a link to that document, and it's very well put together, and I think it really hits home for many of us. The climate crisis is not one that can be solved only with individual actions. It will require a multifaceted response with strong government and corporate action at the forefront. I believe that we should expand out from our faith-based responses, not stop them, but expand out from our faith-based responses to the climate crisis, which, according to Pope Francis's apostolic exhortation, is underwhelming and odd. The Pope, in his exhortation from a few weeks ago, said, the church, and I'm going to say the church is all of our churches, especially the Christian churches, our response to the climate crisis has been underwhelming and a little odd. Why we're not doing more. But to all people of goodwill in government and corporate America, I think there is a large, large opportunity. So basically what I'm saying, and I get this thought from just being a part of so many Zoom sessions across the nation and the world, is that we need to add scope to our response to the climate crisis. We need to, in addition to in the churches, take it out into the world and respond to it at this point in our shared life together in the 21st century. And I believe that there is a path out of this crisis, but only if we act now. So my question is, or my picture is for you to think about, what if we began right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to partner with the City of Dallas Environmental Commission, Texas Impact, Climate Reality, 350.org, Texas IPL, and Mel, all of the others across the state of Texas, to develop a common vision for the people of goodwill, not just the people of faith, but the people of goodwill in government and corporations to come alongside and stand together in a response to the climate crisis. Because as you know, without a vision, the people will perish. Now, I've seen and have participated very recently in one such vision several weeks ago And it was a vision that was brought forth by the interfaith Christian churches while participating on a webinar just 3 weeks ago. And their vision is something that I think everybody can attach to. Their vision is simply one home, one future. It's a simple vision. It's a vision that we already know in our hearts, that we live on one home and we work together, this one home with everything in it, and how we work together creates the future that we will create ourselves. So I believe that it has the capacity of vision, if we could create it here and share it out, to bring people together and create a hinge point to open the door for corporate and governmental and personal responses to the climate crisis. Now, this one home, one future is, and I've got a link for you to take a look at that, is a Christian faith-based response to the climate crisis, which invites all of the interfaith churches to partner together and to stand in solidarity under the banner. And yes, what they're doing is giving all of our churches an opportunity to sign up for the program and to get a banner and to place the banner on your front, right in front of your church. How amazing would that be if every Christian church had a banner that said one home, one future, and people would maybe be interested to find out a little bit more about what that means and what that is. So I've got a link to that for you. Now, while I am suggesting that it's high time to add scope and to invite government and corporate institutions to respond to the climate crisis, I'm really not suggesting that we should use the resources that are contained within the One Home, One Future Coalition, which are prepared specifically for Christian faith-based institutions. This world consists of much more than simply Christian faith-based institutions, you know? So what I'm suggesting is that our various secular coalitions, like this one that we belong to, but let's maybe open it up, and here's a question. Could we have a conversation with the leaders of the City of Dallas Environmental Commission, the leaders of Texas Impact, the leaders of Climate Reality, the leaders at 350.org, the leaders at Texas IPL, and others across Texas, and come together, okay? Not operate separately, but come together and stand in solidarity under one banner. Is there a banner that we separately can come together under, and then bring that to our government and corporate institutions, along with the toolkits which we already have developed, and invite them into the response? You know, IPL has a toolkit. Texas Impact has a toolkit. The Environmental Commission just started in 2018. I sat there 2 months ago and looked at their toolkit. So it's truly somber. It's a truly somber thought to look at what Pope Francis describes as the overall underwhelming and odd response to the climate crisis that has been enacted by the church in general. I see it not only in Dallas, Fort Worth, but all over the United States as I attend Zoom sessions across the country with clergy. We haven't ramped up. We haven't acted, you know, and we can't do it just by ourselves, in my opinion. I believe it's high time to expand the call to respond to the climate crisis to include all people of goodwill, especially the people of goodwill who are in our government and our individual corporations. Imagine the capacity for action when government office buildings and corporate office buildings, hospitals, educational, all of the big corporate buildings would hang, if they would hang banners like flags in the front of their businesses that say whatever we as a team would suggest they say, and to bring unity to the response and action that this country was founded upon long ago. The home of the free, the land of the brave, the United States of America. Yeah, that's the sort of thing and the sort of thought that I'm suggesting that I think we need to expand the work we're doing in caring for God's creation. We need to go from the inside, where we are now in our churches, out and invite the rest of the world in. That's all I have.
Thank you, Deacon Joey. Thank you, Reverend Mel, for your thought-provoking ideas. I think we can open it up for questions now. If you would raise your virtual or real hand, and we'll try and Chip, I kind of thought you might have a question or two.
I do, and thank you both so much for your excellent presentations and good ideas. I guess this is the obvious question that we've all probably had in mind in working on this stuff for years, which is, you know, the situation's getting worse rather than better in terms of absolute emissions. Especially, they continue to increase. Fossil fuel subsidies continue at an enormous rate. You've got this upcoming COP chaired by an executive of the UAE state-owned oil company. And then in addition to that, the climate finance needed is orders of magnitude less. And there's no clear path that I see. There are efforts by Mark Carney and others working on this, task forces of various kinds. He's certainly capable. And there have been sometimes pledges that, as you know, the $100 billion a year pledge most famously at the COPs has not been fulfilled. And the scale needed is at the trillions of dollars level. So my question to you is, Deacon, we can ask these churches to do it, but tragically, despite the Pope's first encyclical and this most recent update, you know, which are pretty unimpeachable in their analysis, and follow the church's reconciliation with science over its history, which is the best way to go. You know, when you have that, the sources of resistance include a lot of Catholics in the United States, tradition I was raised in, and evangelicals. And so simply asking will not do it. There are sources of resistance, and leadership matters. And a lot of the leaders in these churches are not, and not just churches, but also the corporations, the other faith groups, the secular philosophical societies, you know, all the different networked groups that we need to enlist in getting change at scale while there's still a shrinking window of opportunity. So how do we go beyond asking when they say, no, I'm not going to join that. I don't believe, I think it's a hoax. I'm going to be, you know, I'm not going to put the banner up. I would lose my job if I was, you know, going to do that in my church. How do we overcome those sources of resistance and flip it back to the authentic vision of all of these religious and wisdom and ethical traditions in the world, which are about justice? They are about caring for the other, about protecting God's creation, because of course, it also, in addition to making religious sense, makes moral and practical sense. So that's my question, is how do we overcome the sources of resistance? How do we get that guiding coalition of leaders to basically flip and do more to actually effectuate the real change while there's still time?
Great question,
Well,
Chip. I would suggest a beginning point, if you have not read it, is to read Catherine Hayhoe's book, Saving Us, which is a wonderful primer on how to communicate with climate deniers and especially evangelical Christians, of which she is one. And by the way, if y'all don't know it, Catherine has relocated to the DFW Metroplex. She was in Lubbock, where she's still a professor at Texas Tech, but she has moved to the Metroplex and is living, I believe, in Irving. And so,
Amazing. I didn't know that.
Yes, and so we I think whatever way we can take advantage of people like her who are part of a group that we're up against, but yet she is the same voice. Because if you have not read her book, it is just incredibly powerful and very thought-provoking. It's Saving Us, a Climate Scientist's Case for Hope and Healing in a Divided World. The other thing I would say is regarding climate finance. And this is going to be the major focus of COP in UAE this December. Last year in Egypt at COP, it was the voices of the faith community that had influence on the US delegation to even acknowledge that loss and damage was something that needed to be discussed and brought to the table. It would not have happened without the voices of the faith community. And so this year, climate finance is going to be the major focus, that and adherence to the Paris Accords. And so one of the things that I always try to do in my advocacy work is I research the faith background of every person that I'm speaking with. And so I know where they're coming from, if they're a person of faith, what the background of their tradition is. And that way I bring that into the conversation as much as possible. And so that be that as it may. Yeah. Joey?
So I'll talk to you about government for a minute. Right now in the state of Texas, we have between 29 and 30 million people living here. We know that by 2050, that population will increase to, the number now is 53.4 million people. So the question that I would be asking government, okay, is how do we sustain our environment in the midst of a population growth that will occur that's almost double what we have now? And I would listen, because I got to tell you, I come from Louisiana. In Texas, our infrastructure is twice as good. I mean, these people here, you people in Texas and our government does not a really bad job of caring for the environment. I mean, I just see it as I'm walking out. I see pollinator gardens all over the city. I mean, but at the same time, it does beg a question: how do we sustain? What is the plan? Do we have a plan to sustain our environment in the midst of what's going to happen in just 27 years from now? And I would just listen. And because here's what here's what the reality is. It's that we all have to participate in this, not just government, not just, we're all part of one thing. We're all part of this. So the one future, tell me, representative, tell me, governor, tell me, whoever, how do we work together to sustain our future, our families, our children's children, in the midst of what's going to happen with our state in the next 27 years? And I would just listen, because I think questions end up bringing people together and how we enter it. So if I'm asking ExxonMobil, I'm going to ask them, what are you doing? And they have their plans, as well as all big oil companies and corporations. I would go into UT Southwestern and say, what's your plan? to concentrate on the environmental health, not just our own physical health, in the next 22 years. I think there would. In other words, I think I'd be asking questions than by coming in there with answers.
I think one question we can ask is, what is more important, people or profits?
And they may say one thing, but they may do another. I'll just quickly observe, Joey, that the infrastructure, I'm from Louisiana too. It's all relative. It's bad there, but it's pretty bad here in that we had Snowmageddon. I was personally affected and continue to be affected by that. And the infrastructure is on a knife's edge. We're still having power outages, insufficient, attention to it. And a lot of us are very concerned that it may not keep up with the demands even this winter, as it had challenges this summer. So I do believe, though, it's great news that Catherine Hayhoe is here, because I think her technique of basically scaling or reaching scope and scale from the bottom up, by talking to people, talking to these organizations, working painstakingly to get them to have the epiphany, sometimes a religious epiphany, sometimes a corporate epiphany, that we can't just say it's profits. Exxon's Pioneer acquisition, $60 billion. A lot of people think it's basically going to be, continued emissions, even as they have the rhetoric saying, oh, we care about the environment and so forth. So, it has a real risk of greenwashing PR while you have continued tremendous damage to the environment. But I'll shut up.
Well, and we also have politicians who are putting constitutional amendments on the ballot to build more gas-fired power plants and denying that renewables are the future.
Exactly, Mel.
Mike.
Good morning again, everybody. So I guess I'm wondering, I guess a lot of religious figures are coming around to climate science, even as high up as the Pope. But at a local level, my appearance, the way I see it is, it's a very slow change, where we as individuals, maybe the congregation will call it in your church. There's individuals that are all in, there are individuals that are climate deniers. So where, I guess, like cities have environmental committees, we have climate reality projects, so there's NGOs, but what is the infrastructure in the churches right now in terms of bringing together change? And you mentioned that the one that is doing the flag project, that's great, but where is the communication going right now, and how can that be improved to go to that next level of working with cities, working around the DFW area, around the state, around the country? So what do you all see on that front?
Most of the mainline denominations have offices that are dealing with climate and creation justice issues. And they are kind of clustered in several different groups. Nationally, one is the National Religious Partnership for the Environment. Another is Interfaith Power and Light. And there are others as well who bring people together from diverse faith backgrounds on climate issues. So that's part of the answer there. But I would say, when Chip was talking about the slowness of things to take place, and I look back at the history of the Climate Talks COP, and the very first years it was focused solely on science. And over the last 30 years, it has evolved into as much effort and time is spent discussing human impact and human related issues as opposed to climate. And so how these intersect with one another is a very important thing going forward. And the faith community continues to have a voice at these climate meetings and continues to have a voice in advocacy, both on the national and statewide levels.
So I'm going to go back to what Pope Francis said, and that is the church response has been underwhelming and odd. I mean, let's be sober and, honest about this thing. And that's the reality where we are. That's exactly where we are. But there's hope. And I'll tell you where the hope is. The hope goes back to Genesis 1. It's good, it's good, it's good, it's very good. And that's why I keep saying people of goodwill. When I talk to people in government, I often open up by saying, I know you're a person of goodwill. We all are. Okay? So if we could get beyond that banner of goodwill and grow it to the common good by actions, there's hope that that we can become more and more one people, one God, one people, one creation. But it is a sobering fact that our church's responses have been underwhelming. And that's why I think it needs to expand, by the way, from churches into corporate America, into government. Because I don't know how your churches that you may go to are, but church attendance is way down in the last 30 or 40 or 50 years. People of goodwill also live outside of the churches, and they don't ever walk into a church on Sunday, but they're all kinds of good people. I work with them every day. I see them on the street and in the various places that I attend. We need to move from the inside out. And there's so many, in my opinion, there's so many good organizations here in Texas. It blew me away 2 months ago on Lover's Lane to see this governmental task force on the environment and all the work they're doing. I just think there's hope, and we just need to continue working through that. But I really think all of these organizations need to come together under a single banner. And then if we can come together under a single banner and work all of the help that we already have built in, all of the services, all of the information, the education, and bring it out, I really think there is hope in that. There's great capacity in that if we could come under one banner.
Maureen?
Hello, thank you. I'm wondering what movement there has been. Every church has its own bank account, I'm sure. I'm wondering what movement there has been for the churches to pressure the banks who are funding oil companies and funding the causes of climate change to change their practices.
I think that comes from the higher parts of the denominational structure, because those are the elements that can speak directly to the banks and corporate from a policy standpoint. And they're the ones that make ecclesiastical policy, not so much the local churches, but more on the national level.
And has there been a movement for doing that?
It depends upon the denomination, but yes, there have been actions taken. Some of these groups only meet every 4 years, so that's a problem. But there have been actions taken by several denominations in terms of divestiture of portfolios for their pension funds and things of that nature.
Thank you.
Maureen, I think my answer would be, I think we need to get all of the judicatory leaders in the areas of Texas and Fort Worth and maybe even beyond to answer your question and bring them together and ask that question to them, and then we'd have the answer, you know? And that's exactly, by the way, what Pope Francis is doing today with the Roman Catholic Church and his synodality process. He's bringing everybody together. They're in Rome right now, and they're talking about those things. Very open-hearted, open mind, open heart. So I think it would be great if we could gather these judicatory leaders, these bishops or whoever they are, in one place, one day, and people like you and I ask those questions to them.
Jan,
I'm up. Hi, Joey and Mel. Thank you both for your thoughts. Our climate reality faith-based group kind of has folded because our leader moved away. And I personally think we didn't have enough people to create a new movement. And I have been discovering so many great groups like you guys have talked about. And I propose we just, those of us who are in the faith community and want to do something like that, we just join the existing groups rather than reinventing the wheel. So my question to you is, which one of these wonderful groups have you, that you've been involved with, would you maybe recommend? And I want to throw out there that I recently got involved with Green Faith, and I went on the anti-fossil fuels march with them in New York last month.
Oh.
On my way home from travel. I've been accused of burning fossil fuels to get there, but I was on my way home, planned that out. And they're great. They're national. What do you guys think? Those of us who are really involved and want to get our faith involved in this, do you have a pointer for us in the Dallas area or nationally, whatever?
well, I would say that in Texas, probably Texas Impact and Texas Interfaith Power and Light is a subsidiary of Texas Impact. But the National Interfaith Power and Light network is very important. Also, Bill McKibben in 350.org is another one. There are trying to pull up some others, and it's Saturday morning. I'm kind of fuzzy, but this is a focus of what we're doing in Texas Impact. Climate is one of our 4 main areas, and we're working across the board in that regard. I don't know how helpful that is, but I know you're familiar with Texas Impact. Yeah.
Just to some degree. I went to that one conference with you, but is Texas Impact basically faith-based, or is it?
Texas Impact is multi-faith. Texas Impact was founded 50 years ago, 1973, as a result of the Sharpstown scandal in the legislature. It was founded by the Texas Conference of Churches to address issues of faith before the legislature. And that is what we continue to do to this day. Over the years, it has expanded from Christian to include Judaism, Islam, and other faith traditions as well. So it is multi-faith.
I love that. That sounds like Green Faith as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mike? You're muted.
I guess piggybacking on that question from Jan is, and Texas Impact, that sounds great. How many different congregations do you have your Catholics, your Episcopals, who all's involved, but also on the the micro level of, hey, let's just pick the Episcopal Church that Deacon Joey has. Are there conferences that go on monthly, semi-annually, annually? And I'm not part of a faith-based community, but it seems like the leaders of of these organizations can pull together, and it has to be on their agenda when they meet. So it's great that Texas Impact is there, but who's sending representatives to Texas Impact and then bringing back to their congregation and building it in each faith, So I guess that's my question. Where are we at?
Each of the judicatory members of Texas Impact has 2 representatives on the board. And there are a number of at-large representatives as well, but Texas Impact Board of Directors membership reflects a broad cross-section of the faith community in Texas. Now, when I say that, there are some congregational groups who are represented, such as there are some Baptist in there. There's some African American Baptist. There are some other congregational groups, but most of the representation is clustered around judicatories, which represent broad swaths of Christian denominations, as well as Jewish groups and Islamic groups.
Mike, I can speak about the Episcopal Church and answer some of those questions. In the Episcopal Church, our leadership for the last 20 years has held up 3 values to the church that as a church we live into and hold ourselves accountable to every day. Those values are evangelism, which is simply storytelling, telling your story, listening to stories. Creation care and racial reconciliation. I can't do one of those and not the other 2, or I can't do 2 and not the third, because they're all connected. They're all interconnected, okay? So racial reconciliation and creation care stand together and follow the same pathways. But within the Episcopal Church, we have task forces that work at a national level and then dribble down, into provinces and then into individual churches. So we're always working on creation care issues. We contact government about those things. There's a way to connect to the church and send letters to your representatives about things that are happening that impact our lives together, either racially or, in creation care. We meet nationally once every 3 years. Next year will be the summer of 2024. And then each of our dioceses meet once a year. Our Episcopal Diocese of Dallas is meeting at the end of this month. So there are lots of ways for that faith work to be enacted. Is everybody on board? No. Is it getting better? I don't know, but it's a vision that we have, and many of us follow. And so yeah, there are lots of opportunities within the Episcopal Church to jump on board with any of those 3 values, and you simply go into episcopalchurch.org and you'll see them. It's wide open.
I think
we just got finished celebrating the season of creation from September 1st through October the 4th, St. Francis Day. And we did a lot of work together, interchurch work together on season of creation. That's a big, So that's some of the things I could tell you from the Episcopal faith. But we do partner with everybody. That season of creation, we partnered with the Jewish community. We partnered with the Islamic community. It's a one together thing,
I think, Mike, a lot of it depends upon the leadership in the particular area. I know in the United Methodist Church, our bishop is very engaged in creation justice movement. The Presbyterian Presbytery for North Texas is engaged. The ELCA, Lutheran Church, very engaged. Joey, my understanding is your bishop is not totally supportive.
It's not on the agenda yet. I had a conversation yesterday with our canon theologian about it. And basically, you know, we have been evangelism, it seems, in this diocese for the last two episcopacies. We just recently got engaged in some very good, deep work on racial reconciliation with a team of people called Threaded, and that's good. So, you know, it seems as though we gather together and put our work together under one single thing at a time, maybe. I don't know. That's what I'm new to the diocese. I've only been here a year and a half. So I still feel that I'm learning and listening. But creation care, really, honestly, in the Episcopal Diocese of Dallas has not been on the radar.
I would also say that I think that in the United Methodist Church in this area, right now we are focused on Gen Z and millennials, and this is where the future of creation justice movement is going to take place with our young people. And so I think the age differential there is going to play very much a part in what happens going forward.
I'm afraid.
I'm sorry. It's just good to hear the that things are moving along. I appreciate your answers.
I'm afraid we need to move forward with our agenda, but many thanks to Deacon Joey and Reverend Caraway.
I did put a link in the chat to the Texas Impact website if anybody's interested.
Joey, I didn't get that. I don't seem to have received that email from you. So maybe you can send it again and we'll share it with the membership. I looked in junk too, so but we'll figure it out.
Well, I'll get it to you. Thank you.
Joey's stuff always goes to junk.
It feels that way a lot of times, Mel. Yes.
Okay, let's see what we have. Simon, are you ready for to lead these breakout sessions?
Absolutely. So what we're going to do is put everybody into small breakout groups. Richard, how long do we have for this?
10 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes. So
well, let's say 5 to 10 minutes. Is 8 minutes enough, or?
Should be fine, yeah.
Okay.
We don't have too many people, so I don't think we're not going to have like big groups or anything. But we're going to put everybody into small groups, and what I would like everybody to discuss is this prompt. When I tell people that I am involved with climate reality, I want them to think what? What is it that you want people to think when you tell them that? So we're going to go into rooms here. Let's see. We have 13 people. Actually, hold on. I think I need to take controls back. There we go. Yeah, there are my options. Okay. Let's see, so 13 people, let's do 4 rooms. There should be about 3 people. Yeah. All right, here we go. Hey, Jen, let me move you over to a room real quick.
Do we have all the answers now?
Here we are all together as
No problem.
Welcome back. So, anybody want to share what we talked about?
I can start off and try to do justice quickly to our group. Some of the answers were the necessary information, which of course was a big part of the founding purpose and vision of this organization nationally and locally, giving the presentations, and we shifted a bit from that. Motivating people to ask sincerely, how can I help? In other words, they're magnetically attracted, want to get involved. Making sure that people know that they're part of a bigger effort, and then that they're a member of Climate Reality Project because they're part of that bigger effort in order to make an effective, important, timely, big difference. Those are some of the questions that we surfaced, or answers that we surfaced. Molly and Maureen and Mike, do you guys have anything to add?
Sounds good to me.
I think I'll reiterate that, I can't remember who said it, maybe it was Molly. Less meetings and more action is how I'm summing it up, because I've had this problem political world also. So, and as my two, priorities in life merging together, that is in my brain all the time. I want to take the next class. I want to, learn as much as I can, but it's time to put more events on the schedule, more actions on the schedule. So I think that was my big takeaway.
And Mike was much more articulate about my sentiments. So thank you, Mike.
All right. Anybody else want to share?
I'll just piggyback on that. I hope that when people find out I'm in this group, they ask me about it. They get inspired to be an activist. They realize how important climate is. If I'm taking time from my Netflix viewing to do this kind of thing, and hopefully it doesn't become such an oddity that being an activist is important and that the climate is important. So I just think every little bit of influence is what I'm hoping for.
Cool.
We, in my group, I think once again stress the importance of storytelling and making personal connections and giving people a mechanism to get involved. I don't know, Joey, Beth, Jayashri, if you want to add anything else.
just basically when I meet people for the first time, I always ask them, tell me your story, because it's good to know who you are and where you're coming from. And then from there, I'll share my story. And now all of a sudden, two different people come together and we're one. And then who knows what can happen after that. And then discussions like the environment, climate reality, and other things can take place. But storytelling is key.
Very cool. Okay, so takeaways I've recorded are motivating people to ask, how can I help? Making sure people know that they are part of a bigger effort in order to make timely and effective change. Less meeting, more action. You can be inspired, understand how important the climate crisis is. Storytelling, making personal connections, and providing a mechanism for people to get involved. These are good takeaways. Anybody else have anything to add to that list?
We can offer hope.
Offer hope. Okay. Offer hope. Cool.
I'll add something, Simon. I'm speaking only for myself because we didn't have time for the group to weigh in, but I think we need to focus a little bit on, as a group and local organization, the collaboration that Joey highlighted with other organizations, so that we kind of build that collective action standpoint. Also building our numbers and our local brand, is sort of capacity building in order to have those other impacts, being part of the greater effort that people mentioned, asking how they can help, having that magnetic attraction to our group locally, and then trying to, really make the results-oriented difference that's needed.
Fair enough. All right, thank you all. Richard, I'm good.
Good. Okay, thank you, Simon. A couple of quick announcements. We're almost to the end, so be patient. We appreciate everybody hanging on. Had a very engaging meeting. So Jan, I know you're pretty excited about the Verdigris Ensemble. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I just thought if anybody wants a little field trip, or if you just want to take your friends or whoever, Verdigris is a very impressive choral ensemble here in Dallas, and they do kind of a multi, sensory thing with a lot of art, graphic work. So they're doing a very neat season this season, and it's all about the environment. Their upcoming shows are this next weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all at 7:30. This show itself is called The Endangered, and I can get a small discount if anybody's interested, but it's pretty cool because it's just an hour. It's at a gallery called the Dallas Modern. I didn't know we had a Dallas Modern, but it's basically seated, but you're at this gallery. There's going to be a reception afterward. Ticket includes a drink, and the tickets include funding for planting new trees. So I think it's not only great entertainment, it's a less than an hour concert, but it's a great cause, and it's just going to be 16 singers and 10 instrumentalists, and then the artwork within this industrial gallery. So I think it'll be really cool. I'm definitely going to go on Saturday, but as I said, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I put a link in our little chat. And if you guys are interested, let me know, and I can get a small discount. And they also offer group discounts. So that's my spiel. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Simon, back to you on some executive committee issues.
Right. So our elections usually, I think, would be done in October. I'm going to ask that we push that back 1 month. And so the notification is going to go out then via email and Discord, since we usually don't have general meetings in November or December. What I'm going to do is paste right now into the chat how we are looking for next year. Did that format correctly? Yes. Yes. Okay. So that is currently our lineup, and you will notice that we have a couple of openings still on the executive committee, which is why I want to push back the appointments 1 month. So if anybody is interested in either stepping in, or you know somebody in the chapter you'd like to recommend for a position, I'd be more than happy to talk with them. But this is our current state of affairs. I would like to say all of these positions are important. The treasurer is a very important position. It does require a lot of responsibility. Not a major time commitment, I think. Joshua, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it is very important. It took us a while to convince National to let us have our own bank account, to have our own finances, and to have a treasurer. So I would consider this position to be honestly a little bit more important than my position even. So that is where we are as of right now.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So will you let me know even if there's someone wants to, because I'll have to inform the national, then all the information that is now, like, how should I say, linked to me and my email will be then transferred to the other individual. And till somebody is found, I was kind of requested to continue till someone is kind of trained and knows and all that, and then transfer everything to them.
Okay. I appreciate that. John?
Hey, Simon. I just want people to know that an organization that I'm involved with is Rotary. They have what's called the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group. They're involved in lots of different projects all over the world, reef restoration. The main Rotary governor was here Thursday night. I think he's still here tonight. And his goal, and it's based on something I put together. He wants to plant 1 million trees. And I don't know if you saw yesterday in the Dallas Morning News, the Texas Trees Foundation got a $15 million competitive grant to plant trees in South Dallas. So that's a good thing. And I just think if we can plant trees, do sequestering, spread basalt, at least we can start to try. Well, we will start cooling off this place, and we just got to do it because our tree canopy is less than what it needs to be. And so anyway, if you're interested in doing that, contact me. Rotary is really getting into this. The international governor is all about doing this now. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited for Rotary. I'm excited for all the stuff we're going to be doing. And Monday, I'm going out to pick up 75 trees. So it'll be fun. And I want climate reality, and I am making a big deal about it amongst these groups. I want us to help out when we hand out trees in the spring before it gets too hot, because they got to get into the ground. So anyway, that's a quick report. Think about joining Rotary and ESRAG, which is Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group. So if you're interested, call me or text me, and I'd more than love to have anybody join our club. It'd be great. So anyway, thank you.
John, can you share your contact information in chat, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Also, John, could you just remind us when you need a hand, if that big event comes up, like handing out trees, maybe just remind our group?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll do that. Because we need to, like the talk today was, we're going to have to form these coalitions, because doing all these things in all the different silos, just like the city of Dallas has 4 different departments in charge of trees, which is, stupid. But, and it seems like to me, the environmental movement, we got too many damn groups and not enough action. So that's where my tilt right now is to do stuff I can do on my own, because going out and protesting and writing letters and all that kind of stuff, to me right now doesn't make any sense. It just, action is required. And that's what, I think we should do. But anyway, okay, let me share this. I'm sorry I pontificated there. I took from the Pope.
Not bad.
We are over time. So are there any other questions for Simon about the executive committee issues?
Are those, I'm sorry, are those elections or volunteer roles? Like what was that?
They're volunteer. So traditionally we did elections, but nobody has ever run against anybody. So we're just doing it appointments. So we run as a panel, and then if anybody objects, then we can address that. Nobody has ever objected to anybody holding one of these roles. So what'll happen is an email will go out, and we'll post on Discord and say, this is the plan. If anybody objects, do so by this date. When nobody objects, provided nobody objects, then on that date and that time, I'll come back out and say, this is the executive committee for 2024. It's very simple and straightforward.
Good.
Much easier than electing a speaker of the House.
Yes. Jeffrey, do you have something for us to think about as we close the meeting?
I do.
Thank
It's another poem. This time it's by, I think I may have read some of her poetry before, Kai Sedenberg. It's called Pardon Me, Plants. Pardon me, plants, for all the times I've walked right by without acknowledging your existence, let alone appreciating your exquisite beauty. For all the times I've underestimated your intelligence or failed to respond to attempts at kind and respectful communication. Pardon me, plants, for all the times I have taken parts of your bodies or even your lives without asking permission or saying thank you. For playing God in the garden and casually cutting short countless lives because they didn't suit my narrow purposes. Pardon me, plants, for all the actions I have taken that harmed you directly or indirectly, for all the car trips and plane flights, for all the things I bought but didn't really need. Pardon me, plants, for not speaking up when I could have, for standing by in complete silence as your ancient ones were annihilated by those who couldn't fully understand what they were destroying. Pardon me, plants. After all, I'm only human. Thank you.
Can I make one request, Richard, sorry.
Sure.
I'm going crazy. A request to all the members present and not present, please suggest any good book you have read that helps in our this understanding and dealing with climate and related subject, whether it's justice or every aspect of it, because we've read that already, sir. Thank you, though. And so our book club will be meeting in December, 6th December, I believe. That will be our last meeting of the year. And so we announce what books we are going to read the next year. We read 4 books in a year. So I'll really, really welcome all suggestion and then we vote on it. So thank you for listening to me. And I really want you to send me some suggestions. Thanks.
Good. Well, thank you, everybody, especially our very eloquent guest speakers today. Well, member speakers, not particularly guests. So we will close the meeting out. Everybody, hopefully have a healthy and happy weekend, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you again. Bye-bye.